right, Patrick.
Thanks for telling me, man. So
yeah, you gotta wait to drop the gold.
How about we all share the favorite social thing that you want to do with like hundreds of people once it's safe to do so?
Okay.
And think about the fun shit in the future. That's what I'm thinking about today.
Awesome.
For me, I think it would be like I want to go skydiving with like 100 people. I've never done anything scary, and I just want us to all be holding each other and enjoying the moment together, I think. And I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Patrick, podcast host extraordinaire, mental health advocate, and I also happen to be the sales enablement manager at PandaDoc.
Amazing. Scott, your turn. You're on mute.
Oh,
I'm unmuted now. There you go. Classic mute. Yeah, I don't know how I meant to follow on from Patrick's lead there, the skydiving. You know, you spoke about Ireland, right? So half of my family, or part of my family, my dad's family, are Irish. So if I could get the choice right now, something fun, probably share a pint of Guinness with 100 people and a good sing song. That's what I'd like to do. And me, what do I do? So 17 years in sales, so still learning. Currently regional manager for an organization called BSI. Part of the business that I sit in, we are subscription service based. So we look at facilitating access to standards or industry best practice from multiple different industry sectors. Weird and wonderful.
Love it. Amy.
Word. Well, I'm in Texas. So Texas just is in the process of opening up again, which I don't know how that's going to go. We'll see. There's like the local Facebook pages have been lit up. Like people are like seriously divided on this topic, like to mask or not to mask. But I'm actually at a stock horse show this weekend with my new horse. And so I'm actually really excited to see all the horse shows coming back, because last year a lot of those got shut down, and there were some really big events, and social distancing on horseback is pretty easy. So I'm curious to see how things pick up. But another thing I'll say is I had a trip booked to go visit my family in the UK in last May, got pushed back, time over time. And we've already pushed it back once this year. We were supposed to go in May. We pushed it back to August. So I'm really excited to go to the UK and just get to visit my family over there. I think, we take it for granted that it's a simple thing, and a lot of us haven't been able to do it. So I'd have to put my finger on that. Oh, and I'm Amy Quick. I'm a territory account manager for Fortinet, and I sell stuff.
Awesome. Eloise.
Hey, wow. So brilliant question first up. So as mentioned earlier in this call, I'm based in Scotland. The thing that I want to do with 100 people is have a Koehler, which is like a dance between, sort of like a cross between a dance and a fight. And we're known for them here in Scotland, and it's definitely the best way to hang out and meet a bunch of new people and collect bruises on the inside of your arms, which is a really niche subject interest. So from my background, I'm an academically trained linguist. So language is what I do. I help to make language that is obviously very subjective, more objective for businesses. And my company, Olim, closes the gap between what people think they're saying and what is actually received by their customers, because they're often two very, very different things.
Wow. Okay. So Nick, not easy to segue from Michele. So yeah, what do you want to do when you can in Germany with all your friends there, and then lead us into how we can help you out today, man.
Sure. So yeah, what do I want to do in Germany? Great question. Canadian in Germany. It's actually quite simple. One thing that's nice in Canada, as you know, drinking age of 19, hard rules on alcohol, only in the bar. You can never go out in public and do anything. In Germany, that's a totally different environment. You can drink in public, and it's quite normal to see people gathering in the park and, having a picnic, drinking some wine, or playing a game of footy, and then, just cracking a beer after. And that was actually something that I really, really enjoyed here, just gathering together with friends in the park after a long week and, playing a game of soccer, or, setting up some field volleyball, and just cracking a cold one with some friends and just really enjoying the summer weather. And, because that's something I can never really do truly in Canada, it's something I really appreciate here. And that would be something I would enjoy, just getting together with a bunch of friends and arranging a game.
Awesome. But no nude beach.
No nude beach. That's not my party.
Okay. So how can we, I don't know if anybody saw Nick's quick email about kind of what he's doing, where he's selling into. and you know, how we can help them out. Maybe you can just give us the quick overview of like what you're doing today, how you're reaching out to people, and where we can give you some feedback.
Sure, sure. So yeah, I never really introduced myself real quick, but more or less, yeah, Nick Koehler, originally Canadian, grew up and lived in Canada, made the move last year for the first time to Germany, came here, did a year abroad, then where I met Echobot, a sales intelligence platform here in the region. And what do? I am now, as officially this year, the UK country manager. So helping the company internationalize into broader markets outside of the DACH region. And more or less, that's the kind of summary of my role at the company. I was the company's first English hire in the past year in 2020, where they kind of explored outside of DACH markets and really kind of took the company outside of these markets. Maybe I'll just share my screen and give you guys a little bit better idea of what I do here.
Yeah, and I don't know
what I was,
if everybody here knows what DACH means.
Yeah, good question. Good question. Sometimes people know the kind of keywording, otherwise not. DACH, what does that mean? It's the German acronym for the German region, the German market. So that's Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And it's kind of a key growth market in Europe that a lot of companies tend to focus on. If you're on the American side, a lot of people kind of see just EMEA, but one of the strategic markets within that is the German region.
Awesome. You can share your screen now, if you want.
Perfect, perfect. There we go. So humble shout out. What do? Echobot, a company we work for. It's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I wanted to pose the question, you know, why are so many sales and marketing teams still relying on manual B2B research methods for sales and marketing and doing their prospecting? Why is manual research still the go-to method for research out there today? And is there a better way? Well, yeah, but you know, what problems are you trying to solve in that, and how could we help? So I mean, if we talk about B2B research, that's typically a very broad term, and it means very different things for very different people. So, I mean, I'm curious, maybe just I can bring the group in here. So maybe if you guys could tell me a little bit about what markets you sell into and how you guys prospect those markets currently and do your research.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I can jump in because I have a pretty broad, like, targeted market. So I sell cybersecurity. So my prospects are going to be SMB companies, $25 million in revenue and smaller. Non-government, so no schools or government accounts. And I am targeting IT directors, IT managers, IT analysts, security analysts. So really anything with security in the name, but the titles that I'm really going for, like the IT directors or security director of IT security, anything like that. CISOs. So there's like a lot of the one struggle I think that we have in our industry is that we, especially in SMB.
Oh, is it my connection or is that Amy, guys?
I think it's Amy.
Amy.
Okay.
Is it me?
Yeah, you just froze up a little bit. We can hear you, but I think your video just kind of froze. There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah, it was hot. It's my hotspot. Let me see. Let me make sure it's still. Yeah, it's on.
You're
Is
good.
that a little bit better?
You're good.
Yeah. So the one issue that we have in the cybersecurity world, especially on the SMB side, is that we're targeting, you know, an IT director that it's probably wearing 5 different hats, not just security. So
interesting.
That would be my.
And Nick, are you kind of also asking all kind of like, you know, Amy, you've got this target list, then you probably have a data tool that you use to, you know, these are my target accounts, these are the target people. Okay, I'm going to use this tool to populate that target list, and then you have a methodology to go and basically start reaching out to these people, right?
Yeah, this is exactly the type of thing I'm looking for. So this is interesting. So Amy, you're the perfect prospect. You actually know who you want to talk to. You know exactly, you know, very specific titles, very specific departments. And this is the type of thing. Now, how do you go about doing this today? What's your day-to-day in terms of getting those people? I mean, are they in your CRM system already? Do you have a CRM system? Do you use data tools? Do you go on LinkedIn? How do you kind of research your prospects?
So I do predominantly what's in my CRM. I have about 1,700 accounts in there, but the main issue I have is whether or not the current contacts in there are actually still viable. And you have to scrub through a lot of data. And the main problem we have is correlating the contacts that we have with the accounts that we have. So using something like Discover.org to kind of pinpoint specific specific names and contact information for other people within that organization is important. And the other thing I would say is we're starting to use some intent data as well. But again, this is just providing like on already scrubbed lists, going out and scrubbing and, you know, digging through this information myself. I don't use LinkedIn a lot. We do have Sales Navigator that we could use. So yeah, like I'm just kind of getting to where I'm breaking into like white space accounts and doing more prospecting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No.
So that's why I'm curious, you know, what you guys do.
Yeah, interesting. And maybe we get some little bit of coverage from the other guys, and then we can I can ask some questions there. What about you, maybe Scott, Patrick, as well, Eloise?
Well, Nick, I just want to frame this really quick, just so that, so I think what you're trying to understand here is, you know, how does the Scott prospect, Eloise, Patrick, that's great. But then I think you're trying to then maybe go, okay, well, when you're approaching these people, you know, you're categorizing them like Amy would maybe be in a category.
Yeah.
If she's got tools, she could use data sets, whereas you may have some prospects that they're just like, I got an Excel sheet if you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is what I'm trying to gauge here, and this is also interesting for today's kind of talk, is that there's so many different levels of organizations and sizes of organizations that are at various levels here. So I mean, in this instance, it's pretty great with Amy. She knows exactly, you know, she has her target accounts, marketing kind of maybe did some work there to generate this list. They've already met some specific company criteria to qualify for target accounts. Amy also has her prospects all really well defined, and she knows exactly the types of people in which position she wants to talk to, and she's sort of set and good to go, and she just needs to do a little bit of research here, and she has something to work with. Whereas, like you said, Francois, other companies that they have nothing, or they have, you know, okay, I want to target this industry, company size, not sure. And there's totally different levels of companies and where they're at. So I wanted to get a gauge of, you know, what the group looked like today and what I'm talking into.
Yeah, sure, Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm probably similar to Amy. So I'm the UK market only. I'd probably say SMEs, 3 million and above, probably 30, 40 employees and beyond there. I think very similar in the sense that with kind of my prospecting, it's very heavily reliant on our CRM. So what's in Salesforce, you tend to find there's quite sort of outdated contacts. I sell into, the thing with what I do, I sell into multiple different industries. So aerospace, construction, engineering, IT, you name it. So I got a whole host of different job titles. So it could be CISOs, for example, IT directors, heads of quality, heads of engineering, health and safety, a whole remit. So I typically, I don't use LinkedIn as often as I should. I've got Sales Navigator as well. I tend to find that some of the prospects I go after aren't that active on those platforms. But yeah, it's very reliant on CRM and probably sort of inbound leads. I think historically, I've come from a background where I would sort of cold prospect, whereas the business I'm with now and have been with 6 years, they've heavily been reliant on inbound leads and inquiries and what have you, and then tried converting it that way. So then the data is as good as that, as it were. So that I kind of, very much kind of on everything that Amy said, I'm there, but I guess it's better intelligence. I do a lot of data mining. So it's kind of, okay, well, we've got this company in our CRM that isn't really an up-to-date person. So who is that person? And then you're spending your time trying to identify who it is, or several contacts.
Interesting.
Whereas ideally for us, what we'd want to do is be able to pick up the phone, knowing that you've got the several contacts already captured and a bit of intelligence on them already.
And how do you do that, Scott? That's really interesting there. So you said, okay, this instance where maybe you don't have some contacts, I mean, you have the target company. What do you do in this case? What happens there?
Well, I would normally benchmark against somebody I sold to. That would be the obvious sort of thing to look at. So, okay, sold into a similar company. Who were my key contacts there? Who was I speaking to throughout the duration of the sales cycle? And then identify it that way. LinkedIn is one platform. It might be industry news. It could be some websites contain the people and their roles and what have you. It's a complete mix. If I'm honest with you.
No, it's really
if
interesting.
I can weigh in, if I can
Please.
weigh in on this real quick, Nick, I think it's an interesting one because from the group's perspective here, I don't do that when it comes to selling. But from my perspective, in terms of the data question of how do you mine data, it's about, when it comes to automation, you're looking at kind of, buying a spreadsheet of contacts, or you're buying information from somewhere, or you have an existing CRM. Your output is only as good as your input, unless you do exactly what Scott said, which is to make sure that you really dive into that data and do that data mining process in the interim. And I think kind of knowing which questions to ask is a really crucial part of that, and then knowing where to go and find it. And that's my kind of, when it comes to things like, automated copy, for example, you can stick something in if you have a couple of key messages that you want to work with. And that's my perspective from a language kind of corner. But when it comes to that input versus output, you've got to make sure that the input of whatever data you have is, the highest quality, because otherwise you're going to waste so much time trawling through something that is designed to not be successful from the start, purely by virtue of what you've got to work with,
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. Go
I
ahead,
think
Francois.
what's interesting is, Nick, you and I had a quick chat earlier this week, and obviously you have potential buyers, but they're kind of at different levels, right? Like we just described, there may be the one that's saying, yeah, I want to sell more into DACH, but I'm not exactly sure. Then you have some that said, yeah, these are the industries, these are the types of clients, but we don't have the context. And then you have some that might be like Amy and Scott, they're like, no, these are the companies we want to be selling to, these titles, our data is just garbage. And I wonder, like, today, do you want to try and peel back the layers of like, out of those three, is maybe one of those the one you want to be kind of really nailing it? Like let's say you're talking to that third one that says, yeah, actually what you offer is great, but then they kind of get caught up on not understanding the value proposition of your tool. I'm just trying to like help you kind of walk away today, kind of going, okay, yeah, that I solved, or think I can solve that problem, because I think that first buyer, you can educate them, and at the end of the day, you probably aren't in the position to tell them where to sell.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that's why I wanted to do this. It's really interesting to see, like you said, Francois, that there's so many different levels of companies, and that's what sort of makes my job hard. So Echobot is often compared to, I think, the Zoom info for the DACH region. It's in the same sort of concept that we do in terms of how we kind of scour the internet for information, look for the best publicly available sources of information, then use artificial intelligence and machine learning processes to bring that information down to what's really relevant at the end of the day to sales and marketing leaders. So it's all these sort of fields, like we said, company contact data, sort of relevant news, so that sales and marketing teams are the most informed. And what's often the most hard part of my job in terms of qualifications is exactly this. So you get inbound interest with people like yourselves, the sales and marketing leaders, with varying levels of interest. And what makes it very difficult is because it could be something like this, where something like Amy's scenario, where there's a really complex setup, just a list of target accounts. All Amy's worried about, maybe her team, is this list of target accounts. And then it's a matter of, okay, can we service these target accounts? Do we have information for them? How can we support there based on a list, a pre-existing list? Or it could be in Scott's case, where it's like, okay, I need net new contacts, net new people that I don't have in my CRM, in my systems. How do I go about finding them? Are they active on LinkedIn? Yes, no. Where else would they be active on the internet? That we could uncover information about them? So these types of questions are what makes sort of a qualification, and figuring out exactly the best fit scenario here. What's the hardest part of our job?
So
do you think qualification is the hardest part? Like that's the most time consuming part of what you're doing? And maybe even also identifying what competitors are being used currently in some of, because you guys are a DACH based company. So now you're selling into the UK, who they are probably already using the Zoom infos and, a lot of other types of data driven or database companies. So not only qualifying them as a buyer, but also qualifying them based on what competitor they're already consuming. Is that like your biggest hurdle?
No, that's a great thing. And so it's exactly this, and it's about defining sort of the buyer's interest. And so it becomes a really complex problem, which I've noticed over the past while, because exactly what you mentioned. So it's also, I'm trying to, every time I'm doing a discovery or walking into a sort of a qualification, I'm having to put myself in the shoes of the buyer And then if they can't answer it on the spot with, the sales and marketing leader of exactly the markets of interest to them, I got to think, okay, what's the relevant solution for them? Are they using something already? How do we fit into the piece, like, what piece of the puzzle do we fit in here? And it's exactly this which makes sort of the job difficult, because when you're playing in an international organization that's selling worldwide, they might have a tool like ZoomInfo that services them really well in North American markets and maybe does the job for the UK. But a product like ZoomInfo might not have like medium to smaller size companies in the DACH region, and that's where like we could step in and supplement and really have a step into our strength there in the DACH region and supplement and help them with that data case there, where they need this some gaps in ZoomInfo's offering. And it's really, there's different levels to this that get really complex based on the markets of interest. So if it's a company
I have
in
a
the
question,
UK,
and I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump in, but this is just correlating with something that we do at Fortinet, for instance, which I think would be something that might work for you, is basically running a gap analysis, essentially, right? An assessment of where their gaps are in their current process and really whittling it down from there. Because the one thing I can see being an issue is, one, you've got to get someone to commit to a call where you're basically going to be, positioning all of these statements and questions to understand the way they're doing things currently, what tools they're using. And, some people are more forthcoming than others. I know in the UK, they tend to be buttoned up, going to give you everything that you need to effectively sell, because, they play their cards closer to their chest. When here in the US, we're like, oh, I use this guy. Look it,
open book.
But I think doing some sort of a gap analysis from that standpoint will help you. And I think you can quickly learn to differentiate between like someone that is in a prime position to buy and someone that has just signed a contract, 3-year license or something with another company. And it's time. So I don't know, for me, I can see that being like a really quick and easy way for you to prospect and to qualify and disqualify. So you're not spending hours on phone calls with people that would never be in a position to buy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'll let everyone else weigh.
You know what? That's
go ahead, Scott.
That's a point. Sorry, I was just going to jump in. Amy's point there is a good one. You certainly, where I target my prospects, you could do the same in terms of the buyer personas. I'm sure we will do that. But essentially, the value proposition that you're going at, if you're speaking to marketing, their drivers and kind of what's going on, their pain points in their daily lives are going to be hugely different to sales leaders, right?
Exactly.
You've got to identify kind of what's important to them. I think there's the value and the value proposition that you have. There are so many benefits as to what you do, but I just think trying to address them all or trying to articulate them all to the person that's in front of you isn't going to happen. So you kind of have to identify and sort of, I guess, gather what's important to that particular job function you are pitching to, and really push home on that pain point. Because an initial pain point that you may unearth is really just a general surface pain point. It's digging deeper and going right under there. I know, for example, in my organization, the biggest challenge that we have, and I find it myself, I've been with BSI now for coming up to 6 years. It's culture. We've always done it this way. And it's very hard to shift that mindset. There's a lot of people that want to shift like that, but if you can't get them to move away from that, and you can't get the right people that can have that influence on that change, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how great your product is. They will just never change. And for us, it's that archaic way of doing things. Like, well, it's in your CRM, it's in Salesforce. Go and use that data, but that data is useless. And it's the time spent, like for example, us on this now, salespeople, for example. It's the time that we could be spending prospecting rather than mining the data that is crucial for us. So our time is better spent, but it's, as I said, it's just articulating that to the right people and getting that sort of cultural change as well, which is it's a challenge. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Well,
you have it spot on. So go ahead, Francois.
No, that's okay. I was going to pick on Patrick. I only get one chance every day, one day every week to pick on Patrick. But no, all seriousness, like let's say Patrick was a potential buyer, so he's a TAM doc, and they're saying, hey, we want to sell more into the doc region, and he fills out a web form, he gets on the phone with you. I guess, Patrick, what would you be, I guess, looking for? And you already said in the chat, would you be diving into a demo right away?
I'd be curious to learn this, Nick. A question I ask a lot of people is, what is this exact situation where like a terrible thing would happen and it'd be like, this is fucking it. Like, this is the last straw. I'm going to go look for what Nick does. What is that thing that happens?
Yeah. So it's exactly this, in the sense that, for example, if you don't have any tools, you don't have a tech stack where, you have all these emails, phone numbers, everything in your CRM, and you're at a position here where it's like, okay, I have this new prospect in Germany, for example, this prospective account, and you're trying to break in. You need to reach out to this company, and you only have a couple options. I mean, you have their company phone number. Like, let's just take what you can find from manual research at the start, right? In this case, Patrick, I mean, in your case, you have some tools, I guess, you have some things you could use. But if there was the case that you don't have anything at your disposable, how would you reach out to a target account just using your manual research there?
Gotcha. The issue I'm having is you don't book your meetings with salespeople, and you're describing a problem that a salesperson has. You book meetings probably with sales leaders.
Yep.
What's the terrible, no good thing that a sales leader will experience that will cause them to go to your demo form and go, I need this?
Exactly it. So they're not being able to drive revenue fast enough. So they don't have the information and kind of in their CRM there, where it's just all these inefficiencies there. So in a sense, not enough the right data in the CRM, maybe not the right target accounts there are not enough, and a potential miss out on the market. The pipeline's not flowing fast enough, and it's all of these things. You need this information in your systems to basically power the sales engine. That's typically the thing that's keeping sales leaders up at night. They don't have the right information in their systems.
That was so much better, Nick.
I want to go
So
one
much
more
better.
layer. I want to go one more layer. So that's like high level problems, but what's an example of an actual situation where a sales leader will be dealing with this? Be like, God damn it! Like, I need to fix this. Like, what is the moment?
I think it's when month's end comes in and the reps aren't performing, in the sense that they don't have the money in the pipe as it should be, and things are not progressing, and they don't have enough there that they're not meeting their growth. For example, they have a growth protocol. They want to grow 60% this month, and things are not moving along. Why are LGs not progressing? Maybe their reps activity is not high enough. So that's typically the things that are keeping sales leaders up at night. And it's like this information and a kind of systematic process like this can help supply the reps with the information they need to move things along and actually kind of accelerate deals. That's typically what it is.
Gotcha. So I'll give you an example I sell a product called PandaDoc. There's a feature in PandaDoc that allows you to see the email and name of somebody that was forwarded a document. So you get to like essentially uncover invisible stakeholders. So a problem that we would solve like the exact moment would be a sales leader's meeting with their rep, and they say, hey, I had this deal that was about to close, but then somebody came in out of nowhere and they just killed the entire deal after looking at the price.
The surprise stakeholder.
And I wasn't able to figure it out. And he goes, okay, that sucks. And then he goes into his next meeting and the same thing happens again. So he's got 2 deals that he was counting on to hit his monthly forecast that he now has to go to the VP of sales and say, these deals that I committed to you are gone. And my job is on the line. So I'm looking for that kind of situation with you, like the exact thing that happens that you can tell that story to the people you're prospecting, because the more specific you can be and you speak their language and tell them a situation that they've experienced personally, there's no reason for them not to just book a meeting with you right there.
Okay.
I want to hear Eloise's take on this, because I think she does a really good job of putting this in layman's terms or custom you need to crack into and really.
Oh, Eloise, I think you're on mute.
There was, the most used phrase of 2020 and 2021. Sorry, Amy, there was just a little bit of lag. Would you mind repeating that for me?
Yeah, so I just want to hear your take on how he could put this in his customers' own words in terms of kind of flip this back on them a little bit, because I think that that's going to make or break his prospecting, you know, and you do a really good job with that.
Thank you. So I think when it comes to putting this in, I think we're getting there where it's okay. I think it all came through. So I think in terms of when it comes to prospecting, when you're putting it in layman's terms, I always like to use mirroring as a technique. And mirroring involves like shutting the hell up to start with. And I think that a really big part of that is remembering that when you're I was on a podcast with Brian Whittington, who's another amazing salesperson you should go and check out. Actually, his podcast, Talent, Sales and Scale, is phenomenal. I think actually quite a lot of folk here have been on it, if memory serves. Oh, Brian, I know, he's so good. I think one of the things for me when it comes to mirroring with the prospect is that having your mouth closed doesn't mean you're listening. The absence of talking doesn't mean that you're listening to what's being said. So what I would do is sometimes as salespeople, there's a real urgency to help someone see exactly how much pain they're in. But if you, as Patrick did there, what you do is you just dig a little bit more into the layers, and then you ask them and you really listen to the words that they're using around that. So if it's an anxiety, you can play that back. If it's a fear about, I've got to go to my boss and, I haven't had a huge amount of success lately and I'm really worried about this. Not only can you come at it from that negative perspective, I mean, we all know, the last time I was here on Five on Friday, Patrick, you said pain is the greatest way of selling, or Amy, maybe that was yourself. So you want to amplify that pain point, but you also need to really double down on showing them why your solution is the one that's going to solve their problem at the end of the day. It's not just about making someone hurt. You have to offer the balm at the end of it, which doesn't happen with Kaylee's, which I'm still disappointed they don't hand out arnica at the end of the dance fight. But when it comes to that prospecting, I think if you can, maybe rather than listening, and things, but with a conscious competence as a salesperson, you're always running through that to-do list of like, have I covered off this? Have I dealt with that banned objection? Have I covered this off? Have I done what I need to do to close that sale theoretically? If you can make all of that unconscious, which I'm sure you do anyway, and instead get focused on writing down, okay, so he's used that emotive word. He said he agonizes about this. She said this keeps her up at night, like you say. And it's not just theory, it's about how does this become real? And that comes from being genuinely interested in someone. So realize that's quite a lot of nebulous, here's all the stuff you got to do. Boil it down to listen to the words that they're using to describe their problem, and then double check and parse it back to them that you've understood that correctly. So if you don't get this prospect, does that mean your job's going to be on the line? Oh, what would that be like for you? Would you be able to move on quickly? Maybe don't exacerbate it that much, but there's no harm in drilling down a little bit further, as long as you can show them why what you offer is going to fix the problem.
No, that's really helpful, Eloise. I appreciate that. It's interesting you talk about like pain there. So for one example, I mean, in the case that like there's a system, a sales organization in place, and they're interested, they're active in Europe, but they're just entering the German market. Typically, it's like a marketing case where it's like, okay, big growth goals, big aspirations. We got to move into the German market here. How do we do this? Like, how do I get the information my reps need to action this and actually move forward? And so, I mean, if there's a system in place, I had a couple prospects this previous week where they had some aggressive growth goals. They were a funded company, and a couple marketing managers were saying like, okay, we got this kind of growth objective this year. We got to launch into DACH. How do we do this? Where do we get the information from to scale into this market? So typically it's like a couple options. It's like, okay, you set your reps on the market with a couple target accounts. You have a couple industries that are of interest. It's worked in previous markets. And then oftentimes it's the question of, okay, well, where do I get the information at scale so I can give my reps the information they need to do the sales kind of work that they're doing? And that's what we were seeing a lot of. And the pain is often like this question of how do I get it? Like what methodology do I use? Because it's quite different, for example, than in the US. So information is not as freely available in the sense in terms of contact information, for example. It's not the same that you can just use any tool out there to get this information. You have to kind of consider GDPR and follow some compliance measures. So that's often another level of a nightmare and pain point for a sales and marketing manager, because it's not just, okay, I need to get this information from my reps, but I need to have compliant information. And that's like one of the kind of pain points that's typically out there.
It's
Nick, just
interesting
a
that you
quick one on
mentioned
that
that.
point.
Sorry, go
Sorry,
for it,
Louise.
Scott. No,
I
no,
was just
crack
saying,
on.
so if you reverse engineer that in terms of a pain point, right? So you're talking about breaking into a new market. Was it marketing leaders, marketing managers, right?
Yep.
So whilst it's getting, you know, relevant contacts and what have you, ideally the pain is going to be the fact that you said it's a funded company, right? So they have
Yep.
invested. It's about their return on investment, right? So they need to get to that market real quick and start achieving results. But you need to know what the impact of not doing that is. So when they're sharing that with you, i.e. they're saying, okay, well, look, you know, we're funded, we've got investors, we want to break into this market. Okay, what sort of time frames are we talking about here? They say, okay, 6 months time. You say, okay, so let's say 6 months comes and goes and passes and you haven't done it. What is the impact of that, right? And then where the impact is, i.e., oh, well, if that happens, then, you know, we're going to have investors that aren't going to continue to fund us or what have you. And then you start peeling back the layers, the onion, etc. Then you sort of look around where you can help them with that. So how do you prevent that from happening? And how do you help them on that journey to the good stuff? But I'd say your pain points are going to be around those sort of things. So like Eloise said, kind of listen to what they're sharing with you, but then peel it back more. Show curiosity, I would say. Be curious with what they're saying. Just if someone says to you, yeah, we've got, you know, some investors, etc. A lot of salespeople are like, okay, yeah, cool, and they just want to get on to the next thing. Whereas if you say, okay, tell me more about this investment, tell me more about your investors. What is it they're looking for? And then see where along the line you can help with that.
And the perk of that is that you might even uncover a pain point you didn't realize they had. And now you're in a position in their mind as an authority. And the other thing that I would add that Scott brought up is that in your reverse engineering the pain point and you're looking at kind of the numbers side of things, numbers are cross-cultural. You know, that's a metric that everybody understands, you know, and if there's a cultural nuance that you're looking at for marketing managers, then like, well, I need access to this data for the German region. If you can show that what you've offered has had a significant impact in a sort of a very concrete and quantitative way, that's a really great way of making a point, you know. And but exactly as Scott said, you know, drilling down, getting really curious, you might help them discover something that they can't see. I mean, if you can help someone see where they had a blind spot previously, I think that's vital.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is like in this instance, I am just reflecting back on my previous weeks in terms of pains, what you're talking about. So I had an instance where it was like a director of marketing that I was speaking to, the persona, and then one of the things we kind of talked about, why was he reaching out to us? Like, you know, why do you need this information? Why do you need company and contact information? That question actually was quite alleviating because it exposed just what you said, these additional pain points, Eloise. It was, okay, well, we need to launch into the market. Okay, you're launching into the market. Well, you know, why is that DACH a priority right now? Why is this there? Okay, you know, it's a growth priority for the company. Great, and why is this important for you? Oh, well, the VP of marketing sort of breathing down my neck. We got to get this moving. Like, we got to get this rolling. It's a big focus of him about growing out the whole EMEA side of the company this year. So this is also then important for me because of that. And then it was like sort of a little bit, I didn't get deep enough there to this, but your point of, okay, well, if you don't make this happen in conjunction with your VP, what happens there? I maybe didn't go that level further, which is interesting seeing now.
It's a fun one because I think when we sell B2B, we always think about the kind of the fellow business as being the end goal. It's not, it's their customer. And it's looking at the what is the final impact of the pain point that you have right now, because you're not going to be the only person affected by it. You know, that could be not just you looking bad, but your VP looks bad, the director looks bad, the company could have an impact. And yes, that's maybe getting a little bit dramatic, not that I don't have a flair for that, but you know, in that sense, there's definitely something in making it, building out a bigger picture, which then also creates an urgency and a real sense of gotta sort this now. And then you come in and say, and this is exactly how we're going to do it, and you hold their hand through the whole process. And I think that, you know, don't necessarily be in a rush. I mean, people buy from people they trust, right? You know, we want to forge that trust, we want to forge that relationship. I would rather have a long-term sale over a quick buck any day of the week. And if it is that you can't help with that pain point right now, that's okay. You've made them think. They're going to come back to you as at Nick Koehler. That's the guy that made me think really hard about the problem that I had. You're going to build a relationship and trust with them. Now that's the fluffy side of sales, granted, but it is still a very important part of that entire puzzle.
Can we just go back to what Eloise just said? Did you just say rather have a long-term relationship than a quick fuck?
No, I said quick buck, but yeah,
I heard
do you know what?
fluff. Yeah, I thought it was something.
I'm known for not that. I'm known for, which is even more awkward because I'm like, I'm Catholic. That's what I don't. Oh God, no. But one of the great bits is the last time I was on Five on Friday, I think I actually used the phrase "pissing up the walls." So I'm going to get known
It
as
was
being
brilliant.
the person that cusses on the sales chats. This is why I'm not in any kind of directorship role.
You're in the right club. And Nick, to Eloise's point, when you kind of paint this big picture, it portrays you as an industry expert. Okay. And you may not be, you may just be a sales guy that knows the tool and the solution enough to carry on a good conversation, but they're going to see you as an industry expert.
Oh, robot Amy.
And then they're also going to see you as an advocate. Okay, I'll shut up. You're doing great. Keep going.
On that point about being the authority as well, I think the other thing that you can do is you can illuminate a pain which the prospect doesn't really know how painful it is. You're able to actually, without identifying and sharing with them the potential impact of not doing something about it, it gets them to see it in a different light. Because sometimes prospects have these pains, right? But it just depends on how long the pain's been going on for, and also whether or not they know the impact that it's having either right now or potentially in the future. And being that authority and kind of sharing it with them, not that kind of pushing them into a corner saying, well, if you don't do something about it, this is going to happen to you, but it's getting them to see it in their world and preventing it from happening. And the value really is what's the cost of doing nothing versus the cost of doing something. The cost of doing nothing has to be outweighed by the investment they're gonna make. If your investment can prevent X, Y, and Z happening, whatever it costs for what you offer it's not going to be even in the question. They'll pay for that without doubt. But it's really just illuminating the pain and sometimes identifying and sharing that the pain is actually a lot worse than they think, or has the potential to do so. And the easiest way for you to establish what that looks like, because you mentioned obviously UK country manager, right? Essentially go back, if you haven't done this already, go back into the businesses that you've already sold to and talk to them and understand why they bought from you. And since they bought from you, how your service and product has helped them. And then use that in your calls. If you're speaking to a marketing leader, say, look, hey, Nick, typically when I speak to marketing directors, often they tell me they experience X, Y, and Z. Does this resonate with you? Is this similar to yourself? And then get them to expand on that or share insights. Because I often find when I talk to prospects don't like to feel like it's only happening to them. They hate that. They don't want to share that. They don't want to say, yeah, this is kind of happening to me. They're very hidden with those sort of secrets, if you like. But if they know it's happening to somebody else, they're a little bit more forthcoming that, yeah, it's happening to me. I'm not the only one. Okay, cool. It's happening to others as well. And they'll open up to you as well. But you have to obviously have a starting block and something to go off. And the best thing to do is somebody that you sold into in the past and use that. Just go into those calls and share the fact even if you just had a call 5 minutes before you go into the next call, just say, hey, John, look, I was actually just spending some time with a VP of sales in the call before you, and they're going through X, Y, and Z. Is that similar to yourself? Because I can guarantee you they'll either say yes or it's not, Nick, but I tell you what's happening in my world is this, and this. And yeah, that's I'll leave it there.
No, that's super helpful. Okay, interesting. Patrick, you look like you're thinking something there.
I want to hear your opening line on an outbound call.
And tell me when you're talking to Swiss people, is your data like Swiss cheese? Tell me that.
Oh my God, Frank.
Come on, that is so good.
That is honestly, I feel like I'm going to actually use that next week and just see how people react, because that is just too funny not to. I mean, the sense of humor there is brilliant.
I'm sorry.
The linguist inside me has just died a very immediate and painful death.
Everything inside me has died.
Yeah, I feel like Swiss cheese now, just full of holes where my soul.
I feel like pissing up the wall.
Oh, Francois, that was so cheesy.
Never forget. Oh,
Very good with the
Listen, only one dad joke an episode. So Patrick, sorry, no, you asked a good question. Like, what's that? How are you kind of saying? How does he introduce himself, or what's the first kind?
I just want to hear like your call, Nick. Do you want to do like a quick role play before we go? We got 12 minutes here.
Yeah,
like a
good thing.
Cold call.
So I actually don't have a lot of experience doing outbound cold calling. That's not where I came from a background. I'm also pretty fresh to sales here. So I came from like, I'm 23, I'm young, I'm sort of fresh out of university in a sense, in terms of my inexperience. But I had like experience here in terms of the market, in terms of what people are doing. And so in terms of, just to give you guys a little bit of perspective now. So what are the typical setups of many companies? How are companies tackling lead generation? What kind of solutions are available in the market across Europe? I had a lot of background knowledge in terms of what technologies they're using, what kind of stacks they're using. And one thing I kind of learned is that in Europe, in comparison to the US, actually a lot of companies don't have tech stacks. A lot of companies, this doesn't even exist. This is not, the US is 3 steps ahead on context. Not all companies. Of course, there's a lot of forward thinking, IT tech companies in Europe, but I noticed a lot of companies are still operating on like an Excel spreadsheet. Like their customer lists are literally, there's no CRM. Leaning tower of tech stacks. No, like truly though, it's really interesting. And so like, for example, in terms of opportunity, the market would be there that the companies that aren't using a tech approach, they're doing this, they kind of have a couple interesting sectors there. They reach out to companies and it's like, they're doing their approach completely manual. And then it's like introducing them to a technological like manner of things. So how do you go about this? How do you do this in an automated manner? That's like what I've seen a lot of opportunity, especially in, for example, in the German markets. A lot of companies don't have any tech in terms of their approach. It's all a manual, old-fashioned, email. You got the email, you got the phone. There's your outreach sort of thing. So it's interesting.
I think Patrick's not going to let you get away. So I think what he's going to let you do is what you are doing now is Patrick's filled out the lead form. You're calling them now. So I think at the least we can do like a micro discovery, because I think Patrick just wants to understand what's like the lingo like, right?
Yeah, Nick. So like majority of your day, are you doing warm outreach? Like what is your outreach style?
So we started doing like kind of like a pilot test in terms of warm outreach. So in this context, so it's people that have reached out to us that have interest in the DACH region, and I'm doing like a majority warm outreach to start.
Okay.
Just started again, marketing. And yeah, so it's like this case, okay, you fill out a form, you're interested in the DACH region, you have some sort of interest there. And then I'm trying to call you up and see, okay, more or less, what's your approach? And so it's typically a sales marketing leader or a CRM admin that's in the outreach. And then it's the first call. So it's like, hey, my name's Nick. Patrick, you filled out a form. You're interested in the DACH region. Tell me about it.
Okay.
And
gotcha. So that's your opener for most of your calls. Do you want to do like an actual role play? Because like it might be helpful for us to get completely in character.
So Patrick,
I'll be an asshole director of sales. Director of sales.
Okay.
I already got it in my head. All right, give me a call.
Ring.
Yeah, this is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. It's Nick from Echobot calling. How you doing?
Hold on, Nick. Dude, get the fuck back on the phone. All right, 1 second. Yeah, what's going on, man? How can I help you?
Hey, Patrick, man, it sounds like you're really busy over there. You got to tell me what's going on. I mean, sales, it sounds like a hectic floor.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'm actually at one of my guys' houses. He wasn't making enough calls, so I just showed up this morning.
Oh, geez, man, you're brutal.
Yeah. How can I help you, man?
I'm just trying to, you reached out to us. I mean, on our website, you're looking at the DACH market. What's important to you there? How are you outreaching to your prospects?
Yeah. A lot of our sales outreach has been in the States, so we're trying to expand right now. We've kind of gotten the entire market here, so we're just trying to figure out what our next go-to-market strategy is for our outbound.
Okay, outbound. You say outbound sales. How do you currently prospect in the US?
Right now, we're using too many tools, to be honest. We have like Zoom Info, we have DataFox, Clearbit, doing a lot of enrichment. We also have like Lead IQ and Seamless as well. So we're kind of like overloaded on data sometimes, but most of the data, as you probably know, is US and larger companies.
And have you thought about your strategy about how you're going to approach this and tackle the German market if it's of interest to you? Is it a priority right now? I mean, you said German market.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that much at all, Nick, so I'm not 100% sure, but it's something we've been talking a lot about in leadership meetings. And I think the number one thing we need to do is figure out what our target account lists are going to look like. Okay. And right now it's been difficult for us to find data on emails and phone numbers.
Okay, and you said board meetings. Why did the topic come up? You're looking to tackle this market. Is it a strategic priority right now for the team in terms of this next fiscal year?
100%. Yeah. So like my massive OKR for the entirety of 2021 is to figure out our go-to-market strategy for the DACH region. So it's a big priority for us.
Okay, so it sounds like this is really important to you. I mean, if it's on your strategic board meeting, it's your team's there. It's being discussed already. Is this something that you've planned out in terms of budget? I mean, you said you have a lot of tools. You got too much data. Have you thought about leveraging your current data, or what's your approach there for the market?
We've already looked at the current data, and with the tools we have right now for this region, it's just not enough. So we're looking elsewhere, and we don't have a specific budget for it, but we usually find money if we need a tool.
Brilliant. Okay, so I mean, it sounds like you got the tool planned out. Now the market. I mean, who are you typically prospecting out to?
Most of our targets are people like me, so like sales directors, also operations leaders, people in marketing as well, like VP of marketing is one of our core personas.
Okay, and in terms of target accounts, you said you wanted to get a target account lists. I mean, do you know what type of businesses you're typically reaching out to? You said sales, ops, marketing. I mean, those are some key buyer personas, but what kind of companies have you sold to successfully in the past?
Yeah, we made our tool kind of like for companies like us. So 500 plus software companies are typically what we target.
And are you always selling to soft companies? I mean, tell me a little about your product. I didn't catch that there, Patrick. So are you selling a tech solution?
Yep, we sell a product called PandaDoc. It's a DocuSign competitor, and we are selling mostly to software, but some of it comes into other industries like nonprofits, IT, consulting, stuff like that too.
Okay, and you seem to have a pretty good grasp of the market in the US. Have you do you have a good understanding of the sales process in the DACH market? Have you guys done some research beforehand to truly identify that an e-contract solution might be a good fit?
Yeah, we've done a lot of research when it comes to like the potential market in Europe, and a lot of our competitors have already started penetrating that market. So it's already been successful for them. So we're doing a fast follow on their strategy.
Okay, and are you looking? You said strategic accounts there in terms of fast follow strategy. Are you trying to cherry pick off what they already got, win over some accounts, or are you looking for net new companies that aren't using a solution?
Yeah, net new, because rip and replace is usually harder. So we'd rather start with people that are probably more manual on their processes.
Okay, and how have you identified companies in the past that have been really manual?
Typically ZoomInfo, because you can do a technology stack, and we do like an exclude of an e-signature solution. So people that don't currently have one.
Okay. Is there typically one department that you're dealing with that is doing the billing and the contracts?
Typically the CFO like sign off on our deals,
Mm-hmm.
but the ultimate gatekeeper on the deal is usually operations.
Okay. And so, I mean, if we could quickly, pull together some top level target accounts in your key industries here, as well as like key marketing leaders, sales leaders, ops leaders, and get you the relevant contact information and email information that you just spoke about, would that be of interest to you?
100%, yeah.
Right. And so maybe can we pin off 5-10 minutes to show you what we got and tell me how we can leverage that information for you?
Sounds good, man. If you can get this fucking guy that I'm at the house of to work too, that would be great. He hasn't made a dial the entire time I've been on the phone.
Man, if we could work magic in terms of getting you the contact information, I mean, that'd be a first step, but making your reps dial, that would be a miracle.
I appreciate the help, man. All right, we could drop there. I know we got 3 minutes. I'd like to hear what everyone thought of that call.
That was awesome. I'll just say that very just don't lose your style. You got a really chill, kind of laid back style, and kind of jumping around, joking around, man, that's going to benefit you in the sales world. Hands down. So I like that. I would have said you probably could have closed him a lot earlier. Like I would have segued to, I mean, don't feel like you got to ask 20 questions if 5 is sufficient.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, you're good.
So the biggest thing,
I think it was a good call. The human element was there. You didn't sound like a robot. I would say, again, agreeing with what Amy said at the start of the call, because it's an inbound lead. It's an inbound inquiry. Straight off the cuff, you can say, hey, Patrick, what's going on in the world of PandaDoc that motivated you to call us or make the inquiry or whatever, kind of pick up quickly and say, what's going on at Panda that motivated you to get in contact with us. And then straight he'll kind of allude to something, and then you hit up on that pain point, and then you spend a bit of time there, because otherwise you're kind of asking questions, and there's a lot of questions before you get to the pain point. Whereas if you go in real quick, because they made it inbound inquiry, they made it for a reason, right? Because the other thing you've got to be mindful of is you don't want to be spending loads of time asking all these questions. This guy's never going to buy it. He's just not ready.
Okay.
He's not in that space. So just be mindful of that. So try and, I guess, keep that humanization. So yeah, you're good on the call, you're relaxed, you're chilled, but just don't throw out so many questions. A lot of short questions there and the short answers, and it's you want the prospect to be doing 70% of the talking, but you want them to give you some really, really good juicy stuff. But as I said, for me, when I do inbound lead relevant stuff, straight away I'll be like, "Hey Nick, it's Scott calling from BSI. What motivated you to make the inquiry today?" And that's it. I'm quiet, and then whatever they give me, you run with.
Okay.
Otherwise, top work, man.
Eloise, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, one of the things I'd throw in there is, people are busy, but it's okay to pause, because the likelihood of Patrick giving you more information, if you give him space to give you more information, he might volunteer stuff you didn't think to ask about. So I noticed that Patrick's also stuck in the chat there, like, can you ask your web and marketing team to get some of those questions in your form for you? I think that's a great chat. And this is maybe just a personal one, so I'd actually be really interested to hear what the rest of the group thinks about this. I'm always an advocate of asking if now is a good time to call. Apart from going, on the other side of the phone, which is maybe not the best indicator of someone having the time to give you. But rather than obviously it's inbound, right? So it's different than if you were doing a cold call or an outbound lead. It's like, I would never lead a call with, "How are you doing?" Because I'm like, you've called me, you disgusting salesperson. I am a salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm also British, so we're weird about it. Obviously speaking as one person here, Scott. But there's also a factor there in that, like, is now a good time for you to talk? Because, you connected with us. I'd love to know more about what encouraged you to get in touch. What's the problem that you're having right now? How can we help you? So yeah.
How are you doing, makes everybody. You know what I like though? I like this frame. Like I like so I can't remember who was talking about a story. I think Scott, you were saying, right? Like telling the story of the client, because a lot of people don't really like to openly admit their problems. But I think 2 points I want to make. One is I like to let them know this is how long the call is going to be, and this is what I want to talk about. So kind of let them know, hey, you've given me this information. What I want to ask are these types of questions that will help me get you to this. You know what I mean? So I think that people like to hear stories, but they also like to hear, like, well, what is the point of this? Like we're going to go from A to B. And then I think that other piece that Scott talked about is really interesting too, around, how about I give you an example of something else that's happened? And then you can use that at the end to go like, does any of this sound familiar? And that's when, again, they might open up. But I think there's some good points as well around, we might be able to get some of this earlier, right? Like we talked about this early in the week, where they might fill out that web form and give you 10 fields, and you can go back to them and clarify 6 of them. So then on that call, you're getting right into the really, juicy stuff.
Okay. I really appreciate all the feedback, guys.
That's great.
I think we wrapped up, but I know it goes without saying, a lot of us have kept in touch after some of these calls. So if you want to reach out to us individually, appreciate you guys carving out time at the end of your day, middle of your day, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
Bye, guys.
Okay, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nick. Take care, everyone.